Grab your beats tail and get ready to hang 10, because tonight, Woman with the Beard, we're reviewing The Perfect Wave! The Perfect Wave is a card drafting game for 2 to 4 players. It takes roughly 30 minutes, and the goal of the game is to have the most victory points by the end. And players will get victory points by building the most gnarly wave and doing the most sick tricks on their way back to shore. So players at the beginning of the game will receive one of these lovely mile-long player boards that they'll be playing wave cards on and placing trick cards above it. Players will also receive 2 cards from the trick deck and 2 cards from the wave deck, and some surf wax to use later. During their turn, players will have 2 action points, and they can spend these action points any way that they choose, even performing the same action twice. Most of the time during the game, a player on their turn will spend 1 action point to draft one of these cards. They can either take one of these cards and add it to their hand, or they can play that card immediately on their player board, and the cards get played face down. Wave cards get played face down on the wave board, and then the trick cards would get placed face down above. And there's kind of like 10 slots here. So you want to place these wave cards, and you want them to be in ascending order from left to right. So I got that 4 there. Maybe a good idea would be taking this other 4 and putting it there. And maybe later hoping that that 5 is still around when it becomes my turn again. Players also have the option, instead of playing those cards immediately, they can add them to their hand. Another action that they can do is players can take cards from their hand and then play them. Because sometimes you may want to kind of claim a card, but maybe you don't want to play it just yet. So that's why you'd want to do that. Players can also discard one of their wax tokens to have their surfer swim out further. And the reason that you want to do that is when you're playing these cards, you are limited to playing them directly above your surfer and to the right. So you would say, why would you want to swim out further, making your possible placement smaller? The reason is at the end of the game, everything from the right of your surfer doesn't score. You only score stuff from your surfer and to the left. So that's why you want to swim out. Yes, it's narrowing the places that you can play cards, but that increases the amount of cards you'll get to score at the end of the game. Players can also discard some wax if they don't like any of the options on the pier board, and they just wipe all those cards away, and then new ones from the deck are dealt out. Players can also spend 2 action points to just take a surf wax token back, and those come in handy throughout the game. Players can also discard 1 wax token to go through the wave discard pile to select a card. Now, all these cards that the players are going to be playing will be face down, so it makes it kind of tricky to track exactly what some of the other players are doing or how well they're doing. But in addition to just building these big waves and having the numbers go in ascending order from left to right, players will also be trying to collect sets of numbers and runs of numbers. So sets will be like a 3-3-3, or a run would be a 3-4-5. Now, some of those sets and runs can even overlap. So in this example here, this player has a 4-4-4-4, so they have a set of 4, and this 4-5-6-7-8 is also a run of 5 cards, which that'll grant them quite a bit of points at the end of the game. Players will also gain the points at the bottom for each wave slot that they have. Now, if there is a space without a wave card, that will break up their wave and really hurt their scoring. Because remember, you only get to ride 1 wave at the end. So if my player board looks something like this at the end of the game, this would be pretty good, because I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, a set of 4, which is an additional 50 points, and I have a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is also an additional 50 points. See how that 4 kind of overlaps between the set and the run. And players also score the amount of points that is shown on the bottom of each one of the wave spaces. So here I get 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 130, 160 extra points on top of the other 50 and 50. So I'm at 260 points right now, which is a pretty decent score at this game. There is also an option to play with extra scoring opportunities, where players receive these special scoring cards, and they'll receive 2 of them, and at the beginning of the game they choose 1 to score. And in addition to that, prior to setup, you will deal out 4 of these cards to be global objectives for everyone in the game. And what you can do is you can spend 2 action points on your turn to say, hey, this one is going to score. We're going to score whoever reveals the longest wave. We'll get 50 bonus points. So it takes your whole turn, but you're making sure that that one scores, because if no one claims, or well, you don't really claim them, but you activate these scoring opportunities. So at most 2 of them will score, 2 of the 4. So if no one activates any of them, no one will score any of them. But if someone does activate 1 or 2 of them, those 1 or 2, everyone will get the opportunity to score. And I will say, I have seen many games won or lost on these cards, and I highly suggest playing with this variant every time you play the game, because it doesn't really add that much complexity, but it does add a lot more fun. And at the end of a player's turn, if there's any cards in the rightmost pier slot, they are discarded. You slide everything down, and then you flip over new cards here. And when the trick deck runs out, that is the end of the game, and players tally up the score, and the player with the most points wins. So in short, draft waves. You want them to be in numerical order. Do trick cards and place them on top. Swim your surfer out far from the shore. Complete your objective cards and get the most points, and ride the perfect wave. That's the perfect wave in a nutshell. Wow, what a great game. It's easy to set up, it's easy to teach, the rules are clear, it looks pretty on the table. This is a great little gateway game. It's more than a filler game. One word to sum up this game, I would say enjoyable. It's just a very enjoyable game. There's enough for gamers to think about while you're playing it. You know, you gotta worry about the gold cards, always play with the gold cards. So there's those gold cards that everyone can score on as long as someone activates them. You get your gold card in the beginning to think about. You're trying to find that balance of how far to paddle up, but still be able to have enough variety and spaces to actually play the cards. And you'll find out too that if you don't paddle out far enough, soon enough, you will run out of time before you get to paddle out as far as you want. You might build this huge perfect wave, but it doesn't matter if you don't paddle out and you don't get to ride it back to shore. So you got to find that balance of playing the correct cards, trying to get sets and runs of numbers in addition to paddling out. So there's all these different things, all these kind of little spinning plates that you got to balance. None of them are really overwhelming, but you just have to take all these different things in consideration. And I think it's just a very enjoyable game. I really like this game. The Op has came out with quite a few good games lately in that kind of entry level or kind of light strategy, like Mountains Out of Molehills. Check out my review of that. That was another great game that they just recently came out with. So you're drafting these cards, which I love drafting games, but you're also playing these cards on your tableau face down. So with some of the tricks will say, you know, have the most of this, have the most of that. So you're trying to figure out maybe what some of the other players have, but you don't know exactly because, again, their cards are face down. And you can do a little bit of hate drafting in this game too, which I love, because that card in the rightmost slot of the pure board will get discarded at the end of each player's round. So maybe, you know, if you could use that card, say it's a paddle up card over there, but there's another paddle up card somewhere else on the pure board, maybe take that other one and let that other paddle off just get knocked off the end because you know some of the other players want it. So there's a little bit of hate drafting. You do want to pay attention a little bit to what the other players are doing. So that's why I like, there's not a whole lot of player interaction, but there is enough to keep it interesting in my opinion. The game certainly doesn't outstay its welcome. If anything, I kind of wish maybe it was a hair longer, but then I think it might be a little too easy because the length that it plays at now, you quickly realize, holy cow, I didn't paddle out far enough. I better start paddling. And it kind of creates a sense of urgency because the game does seem to end a little bit before you think it would. So it definitely leaves you wanting more. I don't know if I've ever taught this game to the table and only played it once. Everyone's always like, let's try this game again. And it is. It's a quick, easy, especially after you've played it once. You can probably knock out a 3-4 player game in as short as 20 minutes, but it's a good 20 minutes. You know, it doesn't leave you unsatisfied. And the art on the game, I totally dig the art. The way they made the number cards, the wave cards, actually have like an increasing wave image on them. I thought that was really cool. And all the trick cards also have different art for each one of them. And little Easter egg, I guess all of the tricks are real tricks that real surfers actually do, and on the gold cards there's actually locations of known surf spots on them, so that's kind of a neat little Easter egg. The components are nice, the cards are a nice quality, they shuffle well, the player boards, everything folds nice nicely and fits back in the box, and everything in the box when you pack it up makes sense. The cardboard tokens and your surfers are made of a nice thick cardboard. Everything about this game is really good, except for the first player token. It's like one of those things that's supposed to stand. No one likes that. No one wants that to stand. So just take that little thing off, and there, you fixed it. You have yourself a nice, flat, thick cardboard first player token. So in short, this game is awesome. I love it. It's easy to teach. It's just a breeze, and it's a hit every time I bring it out. Definitely stay in the Beard's collection. And if you found this episode entertaining or informative, please consider clicking that subscribe button. And thanks again for watching another episode of Rowing with the Beard.